You are about to be locked inside the Stingray Show. And Omaha is very special within itself. However, one of the most entertaining stories are the Jello shots that fans partake while they are up there in Omaha. This evening on the Stingray Show, we're going to do a deep dive with the general manager of Rocco's to talk about how the Jello shot started and to talk a little college baseball from Omaha right now on this edition of the Stingray Show. So get your Jello shots ready because this is going to be a fun-filled show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
Let me retract my statement for just a second before we start, Heath. Do not take a Jello shot while you are driving down the road. Make sure you do that after you pull over or you get home. Welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Show.
Steven, I can hear the radio commercials right now. Radio hosts tell you to take a Jello shot while driving. Call Morgan & Morgan for the people.
That's awesome. But Heath, no, in all seriousness, we love keeping up with the Jello Shot Challenge from Rocco's every year up there in Omaha. That is a fixture of Omaha, Nebraska, and the College World Series as well.
When Vanderbilt makes it, I always laugh because I don't think they ever get out of like 3 digits. And I was like, Vanderbilt, have some fun. Get out and have some fun. You're there. Celebrate. You're winning the whole thing. Celebrate. And then, we had a total of like 132. I was like, what LSU fan did that tonight? So
and LSU, the last time they were up there, I believe it was in 2022, if memory serves me correctly, they had 68,000 Jello shots as a fan base alone. Heath, can you only imagine how much alcohol is in 68,000 Jello shots?
Someone's got to make that Jello, Steven. That's who my heart goes out to.
Golly.
Someone's got to make that. Pouring it in there is the easy part. Making the Jello, man. Yikes.
All right. So to break down the history of the Jello Shot Challenge, here is the general manager of Rocco's coming to us live from Omaha, Nebraska, as we are getting closer and closer to crowning a national champion in baseball, Mr. Pat McEvoy. Pat, how are things with you in Omaha, Nebraska?
We're doing great up here, man. It's we're about halfway in now, and already had some eliminations, and it's always tough to send teams home, especially when they have great fan bases. But we're still rocking with the Final Four. We'll see how the games go, and we're hoping for as many games as possible. We want the if necessary games. We want the third championship game. It's that's all we care about because we are right across the street from the stadium.
Nice.
I've got to ask, how much sleep do you get this time of year? Because what time are you opening? What time are you getting there to open the place? And what time are you leaving at night?
We open at 9 a.m. every day, and we close. We close when we close. Some days are a little earlier. We call last call when we decide that more than 50% of the crowd in the bar is too drunk to be in public. So sometimes that's 10:30, sometimes it's midnight, sometimes it's 2. You never know until the crowd dictates.
So Pat, if you would, please give us the story or the backstory, I should say, of how the Jello Shot Challenge all started up there in Omaha surrounding the College World Series.
Yeah, so we right across the street from the stadium, obviously. And before it was Rocco's, it was a different spot, and I managed there as well. And so for the first series, in 2011 was the first year at the new field. They moved from Old Rosenblatt to what is now Charles Schwab, and we're in it. We're the final days. It's South Carolina and Florida, and all the Florida fans are down. They need something to pick their spirits up, and so we made them some rally shots. And since they're Florida and the rally shots, and we put a little Red Bull in them. We made them F-bombs, Florida bombs, and so they were ordering those by the dozen, and South Carolina fans found out that Florida had their own shot. So they were like, wait, we can't, if they have theirs, then we have to have ours. We need a shot if they have a shot. So you have to make a signature shot for us too. So we made them a signature shot, and then they were sending them back and forth, having a good time with it. We weren't keeping track or anything, just a fun way to do it. Well, like 6 months later, I'm sitting at a dueling piano bar out in West Omaha, and there was the guys were playing, and the Creighton, Nebraska basketball game was going on. And for those who don't know, like that's a point of contention in Omaha, because everyone's a Nebraska football fan, but some people are Nebraska basketball fans, and some people are Nebraska football fans that love the Jays because they're a little bit more, have been a little bit more successful in recent years, obviously. And so, the dueling piano guys were literally, one guy was playing Let's Go Jays and the other guy was playing Go Big Red. And they get on the mic and say, whoever has more money in the tip jar, that's who's going to keep playing. And it was cartoonish, man. It was like, the old cartoons where someone's just throwing stuff out of the cupboard. That's exactly what it was like. People were throwing chairs and tables and napkins just to get to the tip jars and throw hundreds in there. And I thought, man, these guys are geniuses. They incentivized a way to make tipping fun and to make fanhood like quantifiably better. So like, okay, well, there's 1,001 in my tip jar. You got to come up with 1,002, and if you want your team. So I thought that was a cool idea, and I thought those guys were really smart. And so when the next College World Series rolled around in 2012, I was like, let's just make a shot for all 8 teams that make it. It wasn't Jello at the time. It was just a regular, I had a menu printed out, and we just put them in store and pours. And we had a bunch of plastic shot glasses, and we literally just, every time someone ordered one, we'd mark it down, and we'd pour it up for them. And some people that didn't, the Omaha people that didn't have, they didn't have a rooting interest, they would go by which shot they liked the best, and that's who they would pick for the series. And so it was a fun deal, but the numbers were, a couple hundred, 200-300, nothing crazy. Like, it'd get up to 400, and people would be like, oh, 400 shots, that's nuts. Well, fast forward, it stayed like that forever until Kevin Fulgett, the current owner, he bought the place, and he asked me, he's like, hey, he brought me on. He's like, hey, how did you do this? It's a cool idea. And I told him, and he said, well, why don't we just use these prepackaged Jello shots? Like that way, if someone orders 20, you can literally just, hand them a thing of Jello. And I was like, hey, man, as a bartender, that's considerably easier. So that's when the Jello Shot challenge really, really became what it was.
Wow. So no one's making the Jello. No one's like losing hours of sleep making the Jello.
So we've gone through several iterations. So the first one was a company that we had them in the bars anyways, just for like an easy thing to do, and we used them for a couple years, and they had trouble keeping up, because as it got a little bit bigger, they would be like, wait, we don't get it. How are you guys selling this much of our product? Like they weren't used to that kind of volume. When multiple teams are doing 300, 400, 500, they just weren't used to that. And so another squad came in, and they said, hey, we think we can do it better. We'll fresh make them in-house. We can customize team colors like you used to. We can do different flavors. We can do different alcohols. We can do everything you want. So, if a Kentucky team makes it, you got some Jack in there, like whatever it is, what I mean? And so they were there for a couple years, and we realized that making them in-house is problematic. It's tough to make that many in a day. And you basically, we don't have storage to make 120,000 and then, and just have them on the ready, because you have to have, time for them to cool, that you have to time for them to set, you have to, consistency, everything. So this year we're using a different company. We got connected with them. They're out of Vegas, and it's called Jello Shots, and they're 4 different flavors, and they're sealed. So if people buy 50 and they don't want to take all 50, they can take them out with them and pop them back at the hotel room later to celebrate a victory if they want, or mourn defeat. But yeah, so they were like, we can have 120,000 Rocco's branded Jello Shots for you at the start of the series in a warehouse. We'll bring them to you every day. So every day, we start with 17 or 18,000 Jello Shots on hand. in person and go through as many as the fans want.
Wow. Pat, I've got to ask, I've been to Omaha 3 different times. I got to go to the old stadium and the new stadium.
Yeah.
And I still miss the old stadium. I know the new stadium's nicer, but I love the old stadium. With that being said, this is heavily embraced by the locals, and I'm so impressed at how the locals welcome it. The politicians, citizens, families, everybody welcomes the College World Series with massive open arms.
Yeah.
And the hospitality is amazing. But what about the reverse side of that? Is there a fan base, especially one from the SEC, they're like, oh my gosh, these guys are back again? Because I know, being a Mississippi State grad, I know in states there's a massive wave because I could see the traffic, all the way from where I live outside of Memphis, Tennessee, all the way up there. And I tell people, right before you get to St. Louis, you take a left. When you get to Kansas City, you take a right. You just go a couple more hours, you're there in Omaha. That's how you get there. And it's nothing but maroon folks. But, over the years when there's a lot of SEC teams, when LSU comes, I see a lot of LSU cars on the road. I've seen Tennessee cars. I've seen Vanderbilt, not many Vanderbilt, but some Vanderbilt cars. But Arkansas as well. But with that being said, the SEC fan bases, which ones do you guys roll your eyes at? Like, my gosh, they're back.
Man, we welcome everybody, obviously, and Omaha welcomes everybody. And there's certain schools that bring a small but mighty contingent, and there's some schools that bring just a mighty contingent. And there's no school that we love or hate more than the next school, or roll our eyes at more or less than the next school. But every school has their own challenges. Like obviously you said, Vanderbilt. They just that we know when they make it that the people that they bring are going to be very smart baseball fans. There's going to be 30 of them, but they're going to be very smart baseball fans. You know what I mean? And among them is going to be the Vandy Whistler, which you either absolutely love that guy or you offer his whole table a round of beers if he stops doing it in your bar, which that's what I did the first time I ran into the Vandy Whistler. The Mississippi State folks, you mentioned that, like they were rowdy. They weren't trying to fight other fan bases. They were trying to fight each other. Like they were having too much fun, and they brought the cowbell, and they're blaring. They're having a good time, but it was just like good old fashioned farm boy fun. You know what I mean? And it was just a different kind of fun than Ole Miss the next year, when Ole Miss was more like, do you know who my dad is fun? You know what I mean? They spent a lot of money and they were very polite, but after they got a little too drunk, that it was, do you know who my dad is? And I'm like, I don't. That's just how it goes. So every fan base is. We like to, every fan base is great. And we have a lot of friends in all of these SEC schools now, like true to life. Like, if I found myself, in Oxford or in Starkville, even after this airs and some people, blow me up on Twitter or whatever, like I would have people there that I could call. Hey, my car's broke down, and I could stay with people, So we've met so many good fans from so many good places, but we do like to give some of the fan bases a little bit of ribbing, just because it's a fun thing to do. LSU is interesting because obviously they hit the 68,888 mark. And so they come in and they're a little bit entitled, right? They know that they own that record, and so they think they own the bar too. And it's funny to watch them. Funny to watch a guy that bought one shot act like he's Todd Graves, who came in and bought 6,000 shots. You know what I mean? It's funny to see that sort of dichotomy happen. And again, it's all in good fun. I mean, we like to hear them talk, like chirp a little bit at each other. Like we like that friendly competition, and that's what the Jello Shot Challenge is all about. So we like to give them a little hell too.
Pat, I'm sorry. Hang on. I screwed up. Heath, you have been to Omaha, you said 3 or 4 times. I've got to ask you before we go any further, did you ever partake in a Jello shot?
I haven't, Stephen. I've been to Rocco's, but I did not partake. Yeah, I know, Pat. I know.
I'm hanging up now.
I'm usually always the one driving. I have to drive everybody, and so I have to play it safe and make sure everyone gets where they're going and gets on back to the hotel safely. Pat, what is the record? Is it the 68,000, whatever it is? Is that the all-time record?
Yeah, so that's the all-time record by one school, obviously the 68,888. The all-time overall record, though, we still beat last year. We sold about 97,000 Jello shots last year because, we had that Tennessee and A&M final, and it was back and forth, like when one team jumps out to such a massive lead, it sort of kills the spirit of the field. No one wants to do it anymore, which is unfortunate because it's still, money's going back to charity for that school. So even if you don't want to do it, $1 for every shot bought goes back to that school's on-campus food bank, and 50 cents stays in the Omaha metro area. So to date, Kevin and Bonnie Colgett, the owners, have donated, like $350,000 to these on-campus food banks to fight insecurity. So that's what people are like, oh, well, they're too far ahead. We're not going to catch up. Well, you can still do a Jello shot, support your team, and support the local charities too. So, but the 68,888 is the single record. You'd rather see it competitive. You'd rather see the Tennessee A&M kind of dynamic, but it is kind of fun to see them go that hard.
Pat, if there was the Final Four teams in a championship game of teams that you can pick that's going to break and shatter the Jello shot records of all time, who are those last four teams and who are those last two teams playing?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that I'm not saying this just because I'm on y'all's show. I promise. When everyone used to ask me all the way up until the conference shifted a little bit, people are like, "Oh, what are your top 8? Like, who do you hope comes to Omaha?" And I said the SEC West. Just give me the SEC West, and then it's great, but no, I'd say if I had a Final Four, you got to put LSU in there, obviously, because they're heavy hitters. Ole Miss would come back because they thought, the record when they showed up was Mississippi State from the year before, and the record was 2,965. That was the year I started the Twitter account for it, was the Ole Miss year, and I went from 17 followers on Monday to 17,000 on Friday. So, obviously, people care a lot about it, and that was when everyone kind of nationwide caught wind of it. So, 18,777 was a lot until the next year that LSU showed up, obviously. So I would say, I'd have to put Ole Miss in there. I would put Mississippi State in there because they're a former champion. Obviously, they had a lot of fun. And then I would put Arkansas. That we'll see how they do. Like they're a little bit behind this year from what they have done in the past. But I think that a lot of folks, that team is so good this year, top to bottom. At one point in time, every dude 1 through 9 was hitting over 300. So I think that their fan base just assumes they'll make it late, and so they'll come up in droves for the championship.
And there's an endless argument between those four schools, LSU, Arkansas State, and Ole Miss, who has the best atmosphere of college baseball. And they argue till they're blue in the face, and then it turns into fisticuffs. So Jello shots is a perfect, ending to all of this. That only helps it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been to games at both LSU and Arkansas Stadium. I mean, Baumwalker and Fayetteville holds 11,000, and you can drink in the outfield. I think it's like an unwritten rule, but everyone just pulls their coolers into the hog pen, and that makes for a pretty special experience. I'll tell you that. It's a lot of fun down there. LSU was great. We were up in the box with Todd Graves, owner of Raising Cane's, and that was a very different experience than being out in the hog pen with all the crazies. But I love both stadiums. I don't know if I can pick one that has the best experience for sure.
And Pat, when you look at Omaha, everybody loves the Jello shots and everybody loves baseball. But another reason why we watch are the Cinderella stories like Murray State this year. What has been your most favorite Cinderella story and underdog since you guys started the Jello Shot Challenge?
It would have been a little before the Jello Shot Challenge, back when it was just the normal shot challenge. I had met a coach. This is 2016. 3 years prior, I had met a coach who was in town scouting a kid from Iowa Western Community College that's right over the river. And I asked him, I was like, oh, Creighton's playing a game tonight. Did you go in the stadium? And he said, no, I'll never go into that stadium until I earn my way into that stadium. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. I was like, all right, you're a college baseball coach. You're right next to, the cathedral of college baseball, but you won't walk in until you've deemed yourself worthy. And, I was like, I thought it was a pretty cool deal. I asked him if he'd eaten a steak while he was in town. He said, no, that's the other thing. I hear Omaha steak's so good, but it's going to taste better when I earn my Omaha steak. Had never even heard of the school before, wasn't thinking anything of this. This is, like I said, like 2013. So in 2016, I'm watching this game, the super between LSU and Coastal Carolina, who I'd never heard of, and I recognized the Chanticleer logo. I was like, oh, that's where that guy coached. And when I see him in a super, I was kind of like, man, everyone's rooting for LSU, obviously, but I'm kind of rooting for the Chants at this point in time. So that guy earned his trip to Omaha, and sure enough, he did. And then they barnstormed their way through the tournament and win the whole thing on some excellent arms. And I actually got to meet that guy again and congratulate him on earning his way to Omaha. And Omaha embraces, the underdog. So they definitely, there's so much teal in that crowd, and only about 40 or 50 of it was from Conway. That's for sure.
So, Pat, if you would talk about the Murray State crowd this year and the Murray State story of punching their ticket to Omaha for the very first time in program history.
It was so great to see, and it was one of those situations where, like, you don't know anything about them until you know everything about them,
Yeah.
So you get to know the story, you get to know that the coach is cutting the grass, you get to know that there's that the tickets are free, that they have 800 seats in their stadium, and we actually met the team on Tuesday, and last Tuesday, and they literally were like, oh yeah, we don't get 800 people. We're lucky to get a couple, 100, 125, so to play in front of 25,000 for them was such a cool deal. And they were good kids, and they were really, really, really nice guys, and really appreciative to be in Omaha. And that's what makes you fall in love with college baseball every year, is stories like that, and meeting the teams and seeing how grateful they are to make a trip to Omaha, which again is not on anyone's top 10 tourist destination if you listed it out. But if you're a college baseball fan, it's that bucket list item. So we love to see that. And just like I said, how grateful they were to be there, how excited they were to play. And with knowing all the backstory, Omaha embraced them. The number on the shot board wasn't all Racers fans from Kentucky. You know what I mean? There was a lot of people in Omaha that was like, nope, this is it. We're going for the underdog. We're rooting for Racer baseball.
So, Pat, this may be a very difficult question, but you guys are well known. Give us some of the biggest celebrities that have come through Omaha and done the Jello Shot challenge while the College World Series has been going on.
So the LSU alums really, really show up for us. I mentioned Todd Graves earlier, the owner of Raising Cane's, well-known figure, especially down in Baton Rouge. One of the kindest guys that you'll ever meet. Took care of us when we were down in Baton Rouge. Is the least, he's like, hey, if we can get a little section, great. If not, whatever. Like, we are what we are. Like, he is the most down-to-earth dude that I've ever met, so we really, really like him. But through him, we've got to meet a lot of really other cool people. Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens were just in, the other day, and Paul did the board update. In the history of the Jello Shot board, myself, I've done every one of them but two now. One, Tucker Colgit, Kevin's son, who also manages the bar. He had to do one because I was out. And then, Paul's the only ever one to update that board, to write on that shot board. So it's a cool deal to have him in there, and to have Livy in there and see all the spectacle that comes with it. Joe Burrow has come in. That was a cool deal. We had both Brian Kelly and Kim Mulkey, basketball, women's basketball coach and football coach for LSU. So the LSU alums are definitely the most famous. There's been some other people that are like, former former bowl winners in football or former, former baseball players. There's a lot of other people that have come through that that I still think are celebrities, but like it's weird to mention in names, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of really cool people. And there's before the musician Hardy was big, like before anybody knew who he was, if he walked in now, he'd get mobbed. But when Mississippi State was there in 21, he was literally just hanging out, having a good time. Like he was in there almost every day. People were playing his songs on the jukebox, not knowing that he was just sitting at one of the tables in the bar. It was like that kind of a weird situation. So
that's awesome, man. All right. So if people do not want to do a Jello shot, what are some other specials that Rocco's gives?
So we have a full bar. Obviously, we had to build because it got so big. There's literally a Jello shot room now. We take our party room, we take all the tables out, we build a 22-foot bar just for the series, and all that sells is the Jello shots. You can also get a Mick Ultra, a neutral back there, a couple of beers, but that's literally the only thing you can get there. You can't get Jello shots at the main bar. You got to come back to the Jello shot room. But we'll do about anything, man. We we have a lot of really good bartenders back there, and it's all pretty quick stuff, But we do, I suppose the next thing that not everybody knows, we do a lot of orange peels, which is citrus vodka, watermelon, pucker, a little bit of orange juice, and some Red Bull, and that's like the refreshing drink. That's the I'm hungover, but I still want to get back on the horse drink for a lot of people. So,
and what about food?
Oh, food, definitely. We're really well known for the pizza.
Okay.
It's a 16-inch square cut into 16 pieces. We've got 23 of them on the menu, and we've got some real wild ones, but pickle and all this other stuff on there. The most touted is our Three Little Pigs. It's got a garlic Parmesan base, Canadian bacon, smoked bacon, and some Italian sausage, cheese, and a honey drizzle. So you got a little sweet, you got a little salty, you got a little fatty, you got everything in there that rounds it out. It's pretty phenomenal.
So, Pat, let's go ahead and talk about the matchup this evening between LSU and Arkansas. This is round number 2 up there in Omaha. Give us a breakdown of that game, please.
LSU, they're 2-0, obviously, so they're in the driver's seat. But yeah, man, the way that Gage Wood pitched in that last game, and the way that Arkansas pretty well dominated UCLA, you just know that they're ready. You know what I mean? You know that they're coming to play ball. That momentum is riding high. It's tough. It's tough to beat. It's tough to beat an Arkansas team twice because they, like I said, they have the pitching to do it and their arms are ready, and they've got the hitting to do it. But that LSU team is similarly built. They have some good relief pitchers that they haven't had to use yet because they haven't had to play the extra game, and those bats have been producing. So it's going to be the first one. On that Saturday. Couldn't get a better time. Saturday night, you open the series on Saturday, on Friday, but that Saturday night game where everyone can make it down and have fun early was so much fun. And it was honestly, outside of the championship series, one of the most electric that I've felt. And so I'm looking forward to this one tonight too. I'm going to get to go to this one tonight. So I'm really looking forward to it.
So who do you have winning?
I think Arkansas will probably take this one. And again, part of that is just my own hope because I want a game tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
The more games those two teams play, the better off it is for the bar. But as a fan of baseball, you want to see that, those two teams play as many times as you can. But I think Arkansas is riding high on the momentum, and I think it carries them through tonight.
So, Pat, I just recently, about this time last year, became a meteorologist from Mississippi State University. So I've got to ask, the other night when there was a rain delay and then it ultimately got postponed, what was that like at the bar for you guys at Rocco's?
Rain delay is our favorite words, to be honest with you, because there's nothing else to do. You're not going to sit out in the rain, so you're going to leave the stadium. It's like a river of people. We can see it leaving gate 2, and they have nowhere to go, so they just pack into Rocco's and try to wait out the storm. There's nothing else to do than drink play the jukebox, sing Calling Baton Rouge, or, Take Me Home Country Roads as a singer group sing along. And they literally, they just pack the place for hours and hours and hours. Until they call it. Once they call it, once they either say, hey, we're going to play at this time, or we're going to call the game, then, then some people filter out. But it's a lot of fun for us, and it's a lot of fun for the fans, honestly, too. They'd rather be watching the game, but it's a fun atmosphere when those rain delays happen, and it's part of baseball, and that's what we love.
And my final question for you, Pat, what is the craziest thing that has ever happened at Rocco's during a College World Series?
I mean, I've got some crazy ones that I don't know that I can tell in polite company. There's some pretty wild stuff that has happened. I'll say that, Gordon McKernan coming in and buying 8,888 shots, like just literally being like, this is what I want to do is pretty crazy. I mean, one guy dropping $44,000 on shots because he liked the fact that it's the charitable aspect of it. He wanted to see his team, take an even bigger lead. That was one of those things that you kind of like think back and you're like, did I just ring in $44,000 worth of Jello? Oh, I'll be damned. Yeah, so it is one of those situations that in the moment, you're just focused and you're doing the thing, but when you look back on it, you're like, this isn't real life, is it? Like this can't be a thing. And it was, there's been a lot of crazy times, a lot of fun parties. LSU winning it and coming back to Rocco's after the official team party at the hotel was a really fun night. We had a lot of really good stories from that. And those guys got pretty wild. And, I had to tell them all they couldn't smoke cigars inside in Omaha, and had to tell some guys that they couldn't help me bartend because they're not paid employees and some other stuff. But it was good to see those boys let off a little steam after they won. There's a lot of good stories from Omaha for sure.
So, Pat, if you would go and have a Jello shot for me and Heath, enjoy going to the Arkansas and LSU game, and we would love to catch up with you, especially during next week if we get a game on Monday.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk on Monday if we get one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, man. And you've got a friend in us, and we're definitely going to come to Rocco's and try the Jello shot when we make it up there.
You got to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so guys, that is going to wrap up our interview portion of the show. Really do want to thank Pat there from Rocco's, the famous Jello Shot restaurant and bar up there in Omaha, Nebraska.